Welcome to Affordable Foundations Legacy Impact Through Housing, the podcast that explores how housing shapes communities and creates lasting legacies. I'm your host, Cecilia Cossio, and each week we'll dive deep into solutions, challenges, and opportunities in affordable, attainable, and workforce housing. From current housing models to innovative approaches reshaping the industry, we'll explore the policies, investment strategies, and community-driven initiatives that are making a real impact. Housing isn't just about buildings, it's about people, opportunity, and the future we're creating together. We believe everyone plays an important role in affordable housing, whether you're a real estate investor, developer, policymaker, property manager, or someone passionate about creating positive change. Affordable Foundations is your go-to source for insights and inspiration. So let's break barriers, redefine possibilities, and build a legacy together. Hello, and welcome to Affordable Foundations Legacy Impact Through Housing, part of the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Cecilia Cossio. Today's guest is Bobi Jo, training specialist with Resman. Bobi Jo brings firsthand experience from nearly every corner of affordable housing: HUD, tax credit, rural development, HCV, which is housing choice voucher, even veterans assistance programs. She's worn the hats of assistant manager, community director, regional consultant, and compliance officer before stepping into her current role as an affordable software trainer with Resman. What sets her apart is not only her technical expertise, but her deep personal connection to housing security and her passion for equipping sites and corporate teams to succeed. Bobi Jo, welcome. And
Thank you.
before we dive in, I'd love for you to share anything I may have missed in your journey and tell us why affordable housing. What made this field your calling?
Well, thank you for having me first and foremost. I truly appreciate it. And the time and effort that you put into this means a lot to me. So I'm honored to be here. When I first started my journey in housing, it was a unique situation. I went to college for criminal science and computer science, fully intending to be a crime scene photographer. So with that being said, during the time I was in college, I worked at a newspaper in advertising, and an ad came in asking for someone to apply to be an assistant manager in a portfolio for affordable housing of HUD and tax credit with a set aside of market in my town. And as someone who grew up in a household that had experienced lack of nighttime residency, teenage years of homelessness, and then there were some moments in my youth where, with the world being what it is, it's 2 or 3 paychecks for most of us to be housed or unhoused. And so I fully well knew the feeling these people must have when they come to these offices. Those feelings could literally range from hope to just absolute fear. And so I applied for the position having zero understanding of what that position meant, just the passion that I would have for it. I went up against what I was told was 40 other applicants. And the crazy part is, this was when the economy wasn't that great, right? Jobs were hard to get. And I was told that my selection had everything to do with the way I talked about my drive and the fact I wrote a thank you note to my interviewer, which I didn't think was a big deal. Apparently I was the only one out of 41 people who said, thank you for your time. And so that started my journey 18 years and some months ago. And when I came on board, it was so uplifting and also heavy to be the person who sits across from someone who comes to you with just some heavy emotions, some real world needs, and you are uniform and consistent and thorough, fair, equitable, but your heart bleeds. And so that's what kept pushing me forward to learn to do the most that I could possibly do, so that when I'm in that seat, I don't lose sight of why I started in the first place. So that's what brought me here today.
Being relatable is a very important factor in this field, in anything anybody does, right? If you understand it from deep within, I think that transfers over in the receiver buying into what you're saying. And that's a big part of what you do each and every day is having that end user, the person sitting across from you, especially in training. We're talking about how you started and training that type of emotion is impossible. Okay. Because
Yes.
somebody either feels it or they don't, right?
Mm.
That doesn't mean if they're not able to relate to it that they wouldn't do a good job, because what you said was you followed the practices, you followed the process, you were very consistent, but that doesn't mean that your heart didn't bleed for what the person was going through. And especially when you have to say no. And because the person on the other side of that seat may not qualify because of $5 or
Oh,
$10
yes.
or $20.
$18. True story. $18
Tell us about that.
annually. Well, I had a household, adults, two dependents come in to the first property that I ever ran. And this one was a tax credit. I had some home funds, but the opening that I had, of course, was a specific set aside. I don't recall what it was, but it was like pretty mid-level, right? We'll say right around 50. And putting in every potential, everything, and going with the highest possible due to tax credits, annually $18. And after gathering, verifying, meeting, discussing, touring, and hearing the story as to why this household ended up across from me, to have to sit down and say to someone, your hope for housing here has ended in the answer of no because of the following criteria. I started putting together resource sheets on my own of all of the other available opportunities in our county where potentially these individuals could find assistance. Because saying no and just ending it there was not good enough for me. I wanted to say, while this answer is no, your path is not over, and here are other opportunities. And I mean, Cecilia, I gave them a map. Here's the address, here's the hours of operation, the phone number, your point of contact, the corner street. Please don't give up.
Yeah.
Please know that this was just one path. Many other paths are available to you. And then I continue to be that advocate for options throughout my entire time, just because I don't believe life is one path. It's just wrong. And so that kind of at least helped me sort of tamp down that absolute feeling of I can't believe I'm having to do this to someone, and still potentially have hope the next day that the next person is going to be qualified.
You are such a blessing in that. Well, I listen. What is done out there in the field every day is hard, and to understand the importance and to have the ability to put resources together to provide others when you can't help them is what we're supposed to do,
Mhm.
right? That's the
Agree.
right thing to do. And go ahead.
I was going to say you nailed it right there. It's the right thing to do. And while I appreciate every opportunity I've had in my career, there was a point where we would be recorded on the phone when we answered the phone, right? Very common in our industry.
Mhm.
And it was for feedback. And I was just that person that was like, so what's my feedback? Like, I haven't heard anything. Like, do you have some notes for me? And the regional's feedback was literally, and we're friends to this day. She says, you don't have to be so helpful. You're supposed to be on and off that phone in 3 minutes so you can get other work done. And I was like, I mean, I don't really know what to say to that, but like, you know me. I'm sorry. But like, I will sit with them while they get a pen and a paper if it's a phone call, right? And I'll go through it. So the difference between right and good enough, a lot of people tend to stop at like, "Well, it's not my job." And my answer to that is then whose is it, right? Whose is it? Because as a human being, if you're out in the world in any capacity, in any social level, and you're seeking answers, and people are dismissive of you because that's not their job. It's not a good feeling. And when someone is especially at their lowest, in their deepest moments, it's definitely not okay to just be like, sorry, we can't help you. Click. All right, let's log that one for the day so I can get my numbers in. And so no one would ever said anything to me again about being too helpful, but that was the only feedback I got from the recordings. So I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting, you know.
And it does take time. And for those that listeners that don't understand the level of time commitment from the team members when they're working on an asset that has a program on it, a reporting program on it, compliance is key, or I'm sorry, consistency is key to compliance. And being relational is of the utmost importance in anything we do. In the end, I understand that this is a transaction that has to occur for all reasons. As an investor, I understand that. As a business owner, I get it. Like, I get all of that.
Yeah.
But it is really difficult for people to understand why the properties require more manpower, even with all the technology. And I'm all for technology. I love AI. I love the technology. I love the different platforms. I love everything we can do to consolidate, expedite, um, create efficiencies. I love all that. But it still is a relational business and will always be a relational business.
I think they've
So,
proven that, right? Hasn't there been some studies on, and probably not so much maybe in affordable housing, but just in housing in general, right? When someone calls an office and gets a hearing versus not, the level of community uplift, right? You get your Yelp reviews, you get your Google reviews, you get your feedback, you get your 5 stars. When a human talks to a human, most of the time that's going to be more uplifting. And I agree with you in regards to streamlining, meeting more people's needs. That's a great way to use technology, right? If I can do more for more people, please let me know how. But if somebody has a question that isn't a streamlined question, then
right.
let's have a human conversation later.
Yeah, and, I think that is key right there because, this isn't part of the questions that I had for you, but I think it's really important, right? Because we have so many people in our industry, and our affordable housing piece it's the pool is getting slimmer and slimmer out there. It's really, I'm gonna be transparent, it's not easy. Why would somebody take a leasing job at a property that requires you to verify 100 pieces okay, I'm exaggerating, 100
It
pieces.
could be
Could be,
family is,
depending on how many programs,
yes,
right?
yes, and how many
And
people.
where you're at.
Yeah, yeah,
So why and my company does recruiting and training. We actually train people now to take on positions in the affordable field
that's amazing.
because there's a lot of people out there that can sell, and it's still a sales position because you're going to have to sell them on being able to fill out all the paperwork.
Right?
Let's be honest, about this. A lot of our 60% rents and our 80% rents compete with the conventional sites.
Yes. So why would they? Right?
So
Yeah.
why would a person want a job where they have to require so much to get one lease? And why would an applicant apply at a property where they're having to pay the same amount that they would pay next door without all the required paperwork?
Exactly. This is true. Yeah. Yes.
So and I ask those questions and, my answers are just mine, just like yours are yours. But like,
Yeah.
I think for those in the industry, our listeners that are in the industry, this is a field that is so fulfilling. Housing,
Mm.
what we do every day is fulfilling, but being able to provide attainable housing
for the different programs from 30% even up to the 120%, right? Like if it's at
Mhm.
120%, there's a need in that area. That's the
Yeah.
reason it's 120%.
Yes.
You know, 80%, the teachers, the actually I came across an RFP about teachers in a specific area, and I'm like, I need to go back to that. But I say that to you because you worked in those offices
Mhm.
and you understand what it takes.
Yeah. Yes. And I don't know how many times people would say to me, "Well, I'm not trying to buy a house." I say, "Well, I'm going to train you up so when the day comes, you're ready for the future." So I would always, right? And a lot of times the applicants, it could be their first adult experience in the world. I mean, let's be real sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I've had people who didn't know how to write a check, and I've had people who didn't know how to do certain things. And I'm like, cool, let's have Life 101 in Bobby's office. Like, again, is it my job on paper? No, I don't care. Because if I can give somebody a tool now at this early stage of their life, or I don't even care if they are way off later in their life, if I can give them a tool today that they can use to succeed tomorrow, then that's why I'm here. That's why I got out of bed. That's why I put on pants. Why I brushed my teeth is not so I could go punch a number. It's because it matters to me. And people learn quickly a long time ago in my circle to not ask me about work, right? Because the words come pouring out. And you, I'm sure, have engaged in a conversation with a random someone who just kindly was like, "So, Cecilia, tell me what you do for a living." And then later, their eyes are a little glossy. There's a little bit of drippy drip or something. And they're like, "Whoa, sorry, I'm sorry. Were you done yet?" Because if you don't know, you don't know. You don't care. It's not as important to you. And so I was like, so about it that I have 4 adult daughters and they sort of grew up watching me do this. And one day, my now 28-year-old says to me at the dinner table, because we had a no phones rule, and it was you had to say something cool that happened to me that day. I don't care what it was. It could be like, I saw a really big purple leaf on the ground. She says to me, "How do you like being a counselor?" And I'm kind of like looking at like, is she talking to me? I said, "Honey, you talking to me?" She goes, "Yeah. Like, how do you like being a counselor?" And I would say she was somewhere between like 10 and 12. And I said, "Baby, I'm not a counselor." She's like, "You're not, but you help people, you counsel people, and you help them in life. And sometimes they cry." So they knew this because back in the day, right? You took your dogs and your kids to
Right.
the office, right? We all did it. And so they would be in the filing room, stapling things or whatever busy work I gave them, like stamp this 95 times because mommy's busy. And so at that young age, they heard need and they heard me meet the need. And so she literally thought I was a counselor. And it's just insane that I didn't even consider that she would think that. But the reality is sometimes, right?
You're a counselor, a teacher.
Right.
I mean, you have how many hats? A financial advisor,
Right.
uh,
Have I taken in someone's baby in my office because they're having a crisis? Yes.
a
Two.
mediator,
They
a
were twins. Like
yeah.
two. Yeah. Cause yeah. I mean, and the thing is, again, I know times have changed. This was early on, right? But when you see a need as a human being, like I just picked up the cars and I was like, handle what you're doing. Give me these babies and this bag. And I still speak to that gentleman to this day. Like single parent, newborn twins. It was just something, should we help you? And
Right.
it's, again, not everything that you have to do, but it's stuff that you should just do within a reason. And again, I know times have changed, but I just feel like that just the humanity behind humans has become numb, desensitized, flippant. I just don't want to be that person. I want to care. I want to show up. I want to participate. And I want to leave a lasting mark that builds up somebody, even if it's the person sitting in the closet at 9 years old, listening to me help others.
Yeah.
because that's my daughter. And she is an amazing human being, contributing to society, doing her best, and I love her. So yeah, that's what matters.
Doing the right thing.
Yeah, people see, they hear
Yeah.
you.
Well, we can say we do this and we do that, right? But the proof is in the pudding. It's in our actions. It's in what we do every day.
Yeah.
And our kids definitely see that. And so
Yes.
do our team members,
Yeah.
and so do our residents. And when we talk about numbers, it's reflected in the numbers. If we're consistent, it is part of what is reflected in the numbers. And again, it's a taking ownership of the situation.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. When I was the president of a management company, even vice president, whatever, just in my industry as a leader, you take ownership. And I showed it and I lived it, and it was our culture.
That's amazing. Yes.
So it was everything we did. And I understand litigation, I understand risk and all that, but we serve people. And there is a fine line, and we can document, and we can, there's things there's times that I've said, I'd rather stand in court for that than for this.
Mhm.
And those are decisions you have to make as an owner. And as a management company, you have to make sure that your people are trained properly and that you're following these processes, and that the when there's hiccups, figuring out what the root of that hiccup was, not
Yes.
just broad brush it and create a rule that affects everybody. What caused that?
Yes. Well, most of the properties after my first property that I ran were layered with houses, and they were old, 40 plus years old. And one of the biggest complaints I had at the second property I took under me was there was odd smells in this two-story property with 7 buildings, 7 buildings. So I'm like, cool, I'm on my way, right? And after several people reporting the same thing in not the same proximities, sat down with the maintenance guy and said, okay, let's brainstorm. What could be, okay, the East Twins, we're in a rural community, there's dairy farms, like what is it? And we figured out, he stepped up and said, well, there's a baffle that sits between the two units, the two floors, where the two units have the same airflow system from their cooking. And that baffle is 40 something years old. Let me go take a look. So he goes in there, and that thing is just gummed, closed with like 40 years of ick and hair and gross things. So we started a systematic process of taking baffles down and soaking them in degreaser and putting them back. The work took him 15 minutes. The soaking was 24 hours. The happiness and joy from these residents, like sending cards to the office. Thank you so much. I've been living with this. And it was either because their cooking smell wasn't escaping or it was stuck open and the upstairs person was stuck shut and it was all coming downstairs. But that may not have anything to do with the fact that it was affordable housing, but it has everything to do with the fact that even though it was affordable housing, and I've seen this done, well, you get what you get. And I'm sorry that you have to live here, but no, no, sorry, we don't do that. So we'll come
That
in
is,
and we'll take
yeah.
care of it. Yeah.
That right there is really important for our listeners to hear. What
Hmm.
you did was simple in the process, right? To
Right.
clean them up. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But what mattered is you sat down and you thought of solutions. You took ownership of the problem. It didn't matter who lived there. It didn't matter there was a problem. And I
Yeah.
always say, I don't care if you're paying $5 because you're on a program or $5,000 because you're market. The level of care we should give you as a customer should be equal.
Equal all the way.
Should be
Absolutely
equal.
agree.
Now, I understand a property where somebody's paying $5,000 a month and a property that is not fully funded or whatever. Like there may be differences in things that are provided,
Yeah.
but the quality of the home is equal. The quality care to the customer
Yes.
as a human being should be equal.
Yes. The serviceable actions. It cost the greaser and then a technician who was already salaried to be there. That was part of his day. So it's like you could break it in, right, by his salary and stuff. And time to sit and think another conversation. And it
And
was
not
like,
calling a contractor that is going to
yeah,
cost an excessive amount
yes,
just for a call. Not no
yeah,
disrespect to the contractors, right? But then, I mean, just think about it. Like, I've been fortunate to come across good contractors that'd be like, "Hey, you can pay us, but I'm gonna tell you, guy can
yeah,
do it," right?
yeah,
Solution based. It's finding solutions to a problem regardless of who lives there. I don't even care if people are getting evicted. If there's a problem in their unit, you need to handle
yeah.
it because they're living there.
Absolutely. And the thing is that I've been fully assaulted by a resident household, resident guest, you name it through the years, whether it was verbal, spitting on in my, face. When that resident comes back through the next day, hi, how are you? How can I help you today? And they're always so surprised, right? They have this look on their face and it's like the moment is over. I addressed it, Cecilia. Like it was addressed, but it was addressed according to our policies and procedures the same way that I would address any other breaking of the lease or violations of our rules. And now we've moved to today. How can I help you? Well, I was afraid to come in and tell you that I lost my mail key. Okay, well, you don't need to be afraid. Let's get you, mail key. And over time, I actually had a resident who, unfortunately, through life's events, did some pretty unacceptable things at property that resulted in a whole big mess. So task force, a battering ram, excessive damage to the unit, the hoopla that happens when all the residents come to watch, right? And during the eviction process, he's like, all right, come on in, and did all the things. And I'd say like a year later, I'm in a local sandwich shop and I hear my name and they're working behind the counter. They came around. Can I please hug you? I just want to say that when I did what I did and I went through what I went through and was doing what I was doing, most people turned their back, XYZ, ABC mistreated me. And I just knew that if I had a question or I had to come in, that I would be treated and respected as a human by you when I came to the office. And I was happy to find out that they were in a better place, had made some different life choices, and were back on the good path. And it's not that you always hear that story, but it
Right.
happened. And I was very happy to have heard that there was a successful outcome. But the reality is that we might feel some feelings. Of course, we're human.
Right.
It might be personal. They might disparage something about our person. But at the end of the day, they're going through something. I'm standing over here holding my space, and I'm going to continue to move through that space so that at any point in time that I run into that human being in the wild or they come back to my community in the future, we are good. Right. And it's not always perfect. And sometimes on the other side, they're like, no, I just don't like you anymore. And that's okay. You can feel that way. That's fine.
Right.
But I'm still going to hold my space, And so I think that for that process, when it comes to housing, and understanding that everybody is a human being, everybody deserves to be treated like a human being is really, really, really important to me. To the point where I have said things or spoken up in other people's spaces because I've heard them say, there's a phrase that I hate so much, and it's where someone takes a sentence and says to someone, you people, insert unacceptable statement. And I'm just like the torch in that movie, the movie about emotions. Like I was like, we don't say that. Like that is unacceptable in any context, and you are not going to say that. So you're going to go ahead and step away. We're going to have a conversation, and then just go from there. At the end of the game, by the time I left site, I mean, it was heartbreaking for me to make a decision to transition off site. Because there was a woman and I feel like I'm going to cry, but she was on the third floor of a walk up, no air conditioning in the desert of Northern Nevada. and her husband was passing away. He was in hospice in their home, and she was the care provider, and they were of a higher age. And she's on my last day out the window.
Oh,
Love you, Miss Father. And I'm like, you know, it's like, I can't go. But I can't fix everything. And I finally had to make a decision for myself at that point to make some choices in my life. And I've talked about sight and going back to sight and people who aren't outside of life. And I was like, there's just something I miss about the tangible experience of being with someone through their entire journey
yeah.
and watching that unfold. It's a joy. There's
Yeah.
a joy in that. And I do miss it. I do.
I got to see that as a regional a lot more than I do now. But I love, and I tell this story often when, these programs aren't meant for people to stay on them, but it happens, right? Until better regulation or different like whatever, like that's not what we're here for. But when I see grandma, then mom, and then I see the kids graduate, go off to the army, go off to the or service, go off to college. You see them come back. That to me is what it's about because
Mhm.
you see a progression in their generations of life changes that allows them to go buy real estate, go buy their own houses, even though this is where they were at. It was where I was at when I started. So I can relate to that. That is probably my favorite piece of it. And I think, one of the things that the way I stay connected to the sites is, and it's part of what I've always done. And I think from a leadership standpoint, what my team members always appreciated was I always wanted to know how I could help their job. How
Mhm.
could them complete their work?
Which-
Because what they do each and every day is hard. So it's really easy from a corporate level to roll out all these policies, all these programs, all these new ideas that I have, right? Like, oh, we're going to do this.
Yes.
We need to collect more. Here's how we're going to do it. Right. Like,
Right? Door
so,
knocking.
yeah, but then when you start talking to them, you really want to learn how to make improvements.
Yes.
Listen to what they're saying that their challenges are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to hear that you've done great things. I want to hear what is not great. I want to hear where the problems are.
Love that. Because I don't know someone who's been boots on the ground in it out of a challenged affordable property who hasn't felt like I just need somebody to hear me and hear me well. And when we mentioned early in this call, understaffing in affordable properties, right? It is a very common process, especially when HUD is a part of that program, RD, right? And so I would go to properties to either consult or I would be at a property during compliance. And I would see where the missing pieces were always was the structural maintenance of the units when staffing was understaffed. Because suddenly maintenance technicians are now being used for other tasks of any kind that pull them away from occupied upkeep, right? And when you get into a property, I don't know why this is something I like so much. I was like, oh my God, I'm at a new property. Let's do some inventory, right? Like, let me get some sheets together. Let me build up a little form. Guys, get your keys. And there was a property that wasn't mastered, didn't have fancy locks, didn't have any things. They had literal keys per unit. I think the unit count at this property was around 269. Girl, we got to these units. Ample notice, mind you. I'm an ample notice girl. Not only by law, but because it's considerate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're
Yeah.
getting like a month and then like a 2-weeker and then like a 3-day for me. And yes, I'm hustling putting those on the door on a Friday night up and down the stairs. So we get to the units and I'm like, this is weird. This one must be labeled wrong. No, over 50% of the units, those were not the keys for the doors. What I found out was prior to my arrival, no one had been doing inventory or occupying inspections Other than the 1 a year inspection required and the resident was meeting them at the door, they weren't opening. So that changed everything. We changed our cleaning system. But what that means is if the resident is afraid of having people come in and see something, or they're just blatantly hiding something, let's just be real. How long has this been going on? So we managed to get into every single unit. It took over three weeks of notices and stuff to get into every single unit. And it resulted in over 200 work orders, I think, just for the basics, right? Smoke detectors, disabled. But it's like when someone feels like they can't come to the office or they can't trust you with their safety and well-being, that relationship is already fractured.
Right.
And so we've got to build up that opportunity for those recipients of our housing that we oversee. And it wasn't my property. I didn't buy it. I ran it like it was my property. I used coupons at Home Depot like it was my property because I took ownership when I came every day that my property with my name on it was something that people could say, I live there and you
Right.
should too. And we were able in certain locations to really turn things around. There was a property at one point where local charities were telling their people, don't apply there. So we put in the work, we put in the effort, we put in a relationship, not only with those applicant residents, but with the charity, right? What are your concerns? Okay, let's have a realistic talk. Let me get you some numbers. Let me get you some paperwork. Let me get you some updates, right? Pretty soon, not only did everybody apply, it got to the point where we had to close our waiting list. And not that that's a good thing, but it was a drastic change from where we were before. Usually in affordable housing, you're not chasing people down the street.
Right.
Usually they're coming to you. The events that had occurred at this property had really pushed people away from the line. And so I appreciate that as an owner, you're someone who fully knows what's happening at your property and is engaging in with your personnel and with your residents to ensure this is a place they would send someone to live at too.
Yeah, I think that it really it's a message you said relationships. You built relationships.
Mhm.
You rebuilt trust.
Yeah.
And there are times that owners run into hurdles that don't allow them to fully fund. They provide the basics, right? They provide what is required.
Yeah.
The additional stuff sometimes gets put on the back burner. But
Sure.
when you, as property management, engage in how can we fix this problem using coupons at Home Depot, not over ordering. I mean, like, these are the simple things, that matter,
Yeah.
that help a property get to that next level so you can close the wait list.
Yeah.
So people will want to live there, not because it's the newest property, but because it has the best staff that
And
takes care of the property.
yes, that's
That's
huge.
key.
That's
So,
key.
everything you said is absolutely when people talk about KPIs and all that stuff, you know what? Look at your staff and invest into them and teach them and train them and empower them.
Mm.
We are in an industry and we're in a time where you have to really learn multi-generational behaviors and how to embrace them, motivate them, collaborate with them.
Right.
I mean, like, it's a whole new thing, right? Where some of us grew up in an age where you do it because you're supposed to do it. That's not how it works anymore.
No, no,
That's not
it
how it
is
works.
not.
And you have to be able to adjust and adapt and bring in the different requirements
Yeah.
of our team members. It's they can go work somewhere else. There's plenty of places people can work outside of the industry as well. So I think as companies, as owners, as investors, as business, entrepreneurs, we just need to remember it's relational before it's transactional. You build the relationships, the transactions come. Like, I believe that 100%.
Yep. And there has been a property I was at that I just came in there, Cecilia, and was like, okay, I'm gonna give myself it was a personal, like, I'm gonna give myself 4 months. This property was layered and was so out of compliance that it was 2.5 years behind paperwork, keys, units, all the challenge, you name it, just pile it on there. Everything that could be happening was happening. I cannot say that I was able to get that property to the same level. There are going to be times where 10 to 15 to 20 years of I don't want to say mismanagement, but I mean it is mismanagement, cannot be overturned in 2 years, let alone 4 months. What was I thinking? Right? I was thinking paperwork. I got this, right? Paperwork. Um, and then everything else rolled in. And I was there to do compliance, but then I'm me. So I'm like, I hear a me. Let me go see what that is. Is that my fault? Yes, it is. That was me, like, I don't know that I feel like the individual is equipped. Let me go equip him, which rolled into, like, it was too much. I was trying too hard with limited support. And this, unfortunately, property, it was very difficult for me to just finally say, without support from all the way, we know what we're talking about here, ownership through the management company,
Mhm.
through the corporate office, to me, not in the same region. I mean, we're states away here. If that support's not coming in, unfortunately, I used to say this, eating a bowl of oatmeal. So as a kid, I didn't like oatmeal, and we were poor. So the oatmeal we ate was water and oats, and it was disgusting. And it, like, you took a bite and then it slid in and filled the hole. Your, like, little 7-year-old self was like, it's never going to end. I cannot do it. And I literally felt like this property was like eating a bowl of oatmeal. I would, okay, fix this. Okay, cameras, great. Key systems, amazing. Okay. Hat memo down from 10 pages to 2. Excellent. And then the oatmeal just kept sliding in those holes. And a 6-staff property was me and a temp worker. No, I couldn't do it. And so I can't say that I've gone out there and everything's been successful. Like, everything has worked out. But I did give my best. And I will always try to give my best. And I would always be willing to advise others. And the individual that stayed behind after myself, actually, all these years later, still reaches out to me. And we communicate just about life and foods and, you know, that kind of thing. And so for me, that's just, you can't say that every single time is a win, but I can say that every single time I show. And that's all I got. I
Right.
can't run them. I can't run them all. So
And you can't, but you knew it. And listen, the perfect staff can only take the property so far. When I said perfect staff, that means full support.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
again, that comes or breaks down for many reasons. Like, at times, and especially what we see during these times is when the interest rates change, that changes the capacity of people to be able, like, the money that was free to serve one area was pulled to fund another area. And so, like, there's so many factors to that.
yeah,
But what what you still did was take ownership of the situation. And
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. In these situations, taking ownership full force, 100% across the board, from the initial resident engagement to the exit of that resident or you leaving the property. That is what you owned. That is what you did. And that is a culture it sounds like you really put out to your team members. And I think that that's important. And I think it gets hard. This is not easy. I've said that a number of times. And you have to have the drive to do it. You have to want to do it. You have to want to work in this field.
I've been asked, and you stayed. Like, stories that would be for another time would happen, right? When you stayed, and I said, I felt like if I don't stay, who's going to come into this environment for those people who are trying to live safe, sanitary existences? And this is the only choice they have. They don't have the choice to just be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go to my next home. Like, this is it. And so, yeah, I was that person. And I don't know if that just comes from being a child who needed somebody to do that for me. Probably deep psychological right there, right? Is that being a human who needed another human to come and be there for me so that I would have what I needed. I was going to be that person. And I do that in my personal life as well. And I'm not saying that this is like the best character quality to have, especially if you don't know where your limits are. But I think as I've grown up, right, as my years have progressed, I've started seeing my limits more than maybe back in the day. And I was like,
It's called maturity, right?
here I am. Yeah. I'll get there someday.
Yeah. Well, I think, we're running, we've only got about 10 minutes left here,
Mhm.
and we haven't even hit our questions.
Oh
But
my
I think,
goodness.
no, we did somewhat in some of what we said, right?
Okay.
But one of the questions I had that maybe our listeners would want to hear from you is, how did you go from site to training? Because I do hear, I want to do training from some of the site team members, and some of them, like, they look, I was not a trainer. I am not a trainer. I can motivate. I can explain the vision. I can get people to execute, but training is not my forte.
I
So,
wasn't looking. I wasn't looking. I was contacted. So a recruiter communicated with me and I actually declined. I didn't feel that was a fit for me. And after a couple conversations, they asked if they could give me an affordable housing test. And I was like, I'm a weirdo, right? I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
I want to see how I do. Like, do I know what I'm talking about? Let's find out. So it was hilarious because he gave me the test. And then I was like, what did he say to me? He goes, well, I don't know what any of that meant, but you passed. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Right. And so as the conversation continued, I had a close friend in life at the time. And I said, this opportunity has come to me. They said, are you kidding? Like, for your own sanity, right? You should probably consider it. So that's how it happened. I think COVID contributed to the opportunity for more remote positions for people to work from home. Now we are back to in office. I've had people reach out to me and say, how do I get this same thing you have? My honest answer is, I do not believe that if I hadn't put in the years on site, on the ground, doing the hard work, they would have reached out to me, number one. So you've got to have the experience that the recruiter's looking for. Let's start there. Secondly, you've got to find a company still willing to practice in those types of jobs. So my personal position is I do travel and then I'm remote, but a lot of companies are shutting the door on that. So the unfortunate answer is you might have to move to a region where they need someone to be at the
Mhm.
corporate level or to travel to the clients. And then just put yourself out there, network yourself with people who are in those industries or in that particular program, I should say, that you're passionate about, and then see where it goes. I don't have a magic. I didn't go looking for it. It wasn't my end goal. And I will tell anyone who goes from the hustle and bustle site to a work from home position, there is a psychological and emotional curve, and it's very real. It's very real, and they need to be prepared for it. That's all I can say. So, in
Yeah,
regards to
people
that,
say, I want to work from home. I want to work from home. It's a different mindset, a different discipline. I mean, it's different, right? Especially if you're a people person.
I am a very unique creature in the fact that I'm the most extroverted introvert you'll ever meet. I go into the world and I do all the things, and everybody's like, "Wow!" And like my happy place is not with people. It's like outside in nature, with a dog, a goats in sunshine, a cloud, a tree, a bird. So I thought I was gonna blossom. What I didn't realize is that when you don't have that same structure of your consistency, it's not that I was schedule, but like in my consistency at site, occupied inspections, forced people interaction. And as
Right.
much as I'm enjoying this conversation with you, it's not the same as human interaction, right? And this is what I do all day.
Right.
And it does leave a little hole. There's a
Yeah.
gap in my human interaction. So I try to fill that in other ways. Actually, today I was thinking, why don't I go volunteer somewhere? I don't know why I haven't done that yet. Well, I'm thinking about
Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. Like today, I heard a lot about your heart and passion and why showing up every day in what you do is it's it's more than just about paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
It's about people,
Thanks.
right? So like one of the things I say is people, purpose, progress in everything we do, because whether you invest in people, whether you need the people, whatever it is, it's for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And your purpose, their purpose, a greater purpose. And that's what's needed to make progress. Otherwise, you stay stagnant.
Yes.
And complacency is a killer of all.
Mm-hmm.
And being intentional about what we do, especially in this business, is key. It's so is key. I'm so grateful that we got to listen to you today,
No.
because I think our site teams, our trainers, our corporate team members, we don't hear enough of their experiences. And those experiences are real. Like, I mean, they are real, they are raw, and they are what makes those properties.
Yes.
I say this in my consulting every day. Like, you can buy a property. You can have all the money to buy property, and you're spending millions of dollars on the property. Please, 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 please make sure you got the payroll number right.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean that you overpay for lack of skill,
Right.
but you pay for people's experience,
Mm-hmm.
or you
Yeah.
pay to train people for the proper experience. Heart is heart, man. You're going to find that. You find people that want to work, you hold on to them.
Yeah.
Like, I make sure that my people, I still call them my people.
Yeah.
They're working for other companies. They're my people.
Yeah.
I fully believe that I am where I am because of them, because they did what they had to do every day, which allowed me to do what I needed to do, which allowed me to progress. In turn, I made sure part of my long-term plan is to train people in this industry to get out there and buy assets. If I
That's
did it,
amazing.
anybody can do it,
I love that. That's
you know?
amazing.
And
I
and
love
I
that.
think, but it takes heart, it takes grit, it takes determination. It takes everything we do out there on those sites in this industry every day. Why not do it for yourself? Right?
Agreed.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I'm not telling
Agreed.
people to go leave their job and, go do it for yourself. That's not what I'm
Suddenly
saying.
there's an upsurge in available
Right. Like, that's not
opportunities.
what I'm saying. There's a lot of risk that comes on in being out there for yourself. But whatever you do, own it.
Yeah.
Own it.
Yep.
Whatever you do, you own it 100%, because how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Agreed.
And,
Absolutely.
I am so grateful that you were on today, because it really, again, takes me back to what we need to be reminded of, that these are real stories. We deal with real people, we deal with real situations, and it takes heart and passion.
And I would say for anyone at a corporate level, this is talked about all the time. Very little is it applied. Go work any role. I don't care what it is. Go work a role at an office for a week at least, minimum. Let's not do the day, the hour. Like, put on the shoes in the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Show up on time. Duties and response. Let's go. Like, get those notices out. Contact, communicate, engage, participate, timely. Da, 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 da. And then after that week, sit down and think about how that was for the site, right? And maybe you got lucky and it wasn't even that bad now, right? And very few times has anyone that I ever worked under a corporate done that, except for one woman who was my original compliance oversight, who I was not fond of at the beginning. We're still friends 18 years later. Just talked to her like 2 weeks ago. And she was hardcore. Like, we learned how to do everything on paper because she had a belief that one day that was going to be what's going to be done. So I could process and file on paper, tell the resident all the things. And so with that being said, she had been at corporate for a very long time and she had to cover her property for leave, and she had to cover it for a month. And I will tell you, she communicated with humility to everybody in a mass communication saying, I lost sight. Being here at corporate has made me lose sight. And I have my eyes opened, and I will now remember that is what it's like at sight. So I think if I was to say anything to anybody who's listening to this, who's at a corporate level or even an ownership level, bring your boss to work day, like legit full blown, get in there, do the tasks, take the calls.
You're going to appreciate this. So when I took over the company I was with, there was a lot of breakdown in communication and understanding between the departments and the sites. So I sent our team members, I sent our accounting people and our compliance people to work on the sites. And it really helped accounting. Accounting was there for 2 days. And I made sure to send them to the most difficult sites.
Yes.
So they understood very quickly when they're calling the property and saying, I need this right now, that they're probably out there dealing with a kid that's lost, resident that has fallen, a more serious situation, and they can't do it right now.
I know we're wrapping, but true story. Corporate, I need the reports XYZ. This is me with one hand typing on the keyboard. Wow. This because the number of police personnel that were going past the window with assault weapons drawn, jackets, the full thing. I'm like, not really good time. Can't get those reports to you right now. And they actually said they didn't believe me. So I crept around and took pictures of the full onslaught of having someone brandishing a weapon and having them come in full force to address it. And was like, this is why the personnel is not in the office right now or answering their phone, because I've taken them from this situation to safety. Like, we're at Subway 2 blocks away. And that's how it's going to be. I'm so sorry. And so sometimes I do think it's easy, like you said, right, to be like, they didn't answer the phone and called 10 minutes ago. What could they be doing? Name it. What could they be doing? The least of those, maybe they're going to the restroom.
Maybe, right? Like,
yeah,
I get it. And as an owner that sits on owner calls, I'm like, yeah, you guys don't get it. You guys don't get it. And I'm grateful for the partners I have because they hear me.
Yeah.
But, you don't really get it until you get it. So anyway, thank you, Bobi Jo, for your insights and your experiences. And you have brought a wealth of information and knowledge and passion and purpose and all that good stuff to our audience. I'm really grateful that you came on today and voiced your experience. It's really important for people to get out here and voice their experiences. And so I'm grateful that you were on.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Yeah.
We could fill a couple of more hours.
I know. We really could. We make people's eyes glaze over, okay? So yeah, we could.
A little bit of drippy drip. Yeah.
To our audience, remember that affordable housing isn't just about buildings. It's about people, purpose, progress, and building a legacy for future generations. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of Affordable Foundations, Legacy Impact Through Housing. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a fresh perspective on the role we all play in creating sustainable, thriving communities. Affordable housing isn't just about buildings. It's about people, opportunity, and the legacies we leave behind. Every step we take to improve access, challenge stigmas, and drive solutions brings us closer to a future where everyone has a place to call home. Make sure to subscribe to Affordable Foundations on your favorite podcast platform and share this episode with others who are just as passionate about making a difference. Follow us on social media for more insights, updates, and stories from the field. And before we go, a special shout out to the incredible teams working on the front lines of our multifamily properties. The property managers, maintenance teams, leasing staff, and all those who make housing possible every day. Your work is the foundation of stronger communities, and we see you. We appreciate you, and we thank you. Until next time, let's keep building a legacy that lasts.